Again. Hi, everybody. This is Michael Mathieu with Foundational Health, and I'm very honored to have a special guest today, Shana. And just a quick introduction. I met Shana initially. I took swing dance lessons with her here in Boulder, Colorado many years ago. And along the way, she was having some foot pain at the time, and I did some body work with her, and I think it helped a little bit, but it didn't get to the root of what was going on. So and I just recently reconnected in a Facebook group, and so I got to hear Shana's story, and she's got a good one about her healing, and I thought it'd be really great to have an interview with her to share with my audience. So welcome, Shana.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Yeah. So why don't you maybe give us a little bit of a background before, you've had some health issues along the way, and before you started taking steps to get better. Why don't you give us a little idea of where things were at, and you can go back as far as you want.
Okay.
Start with things.
Yeah, it's hard to figure out how far back to go, but in general, the past 10 years or so, I've had just kind of random pain. So joint pain, lower back pain, foot pain, hip pain, tendinitis, just really strange injuries. My upper back was pretty bad for a while, and it didn't really make sense, but I just kind of assumed that was just part of life. And pain was kind of normal for a while.
Yeah.
And
how early in your life did you start noticing things, even as a teenager?
I would say probably college.
Okay.
So late teens. But after that, it was, every couple of years I'd have something that had me out for 3 months. Just kind of a random, like my back would be in a lot of pain, or my shoulder would be in a lot of pain, and I wasn't injured to the point where it made sense that I was in that much pain, and it would be really persistent.
Yeah, and especially at that age.
Yeah.
That's just wrong.
And I don't think I really realized how unnormal that was at that age. But yeah. So, and then about 5 years ago, I got a really bad bout of bronchitis. And I was, in a really bad place for a 3 weeks, and I took some antibiotics. And after that, things really, really went downhill.
Okay.
So then I was getting, brain fog and extreme fatigue and weight gain, and just really, really not feeling like myself. And I think the rapid change with that really convinced me that something was really wrong. It wasn't just that, I was just getting old or feeling bad. Something was really wrong with me. So I was worried about some kind of chronic health condition like lupus or cancer or something. I mean, I'm an engineer by trade. I couldn't think at work. I was starting to get worried about losing my job maybe, because I just couldn't. I mean, nobody had said anything at work, but I didn't feel like I was doing a good job, because I would just, I would go to work and then I would just come home and sleep. I was just so wiped out all the time.
Wow. And what was your diet like at that point?
I was actually pretty low carb then, sort of like medium low carb at that point, but not any sort of very intense low carb. So, no wheat, basically grain free, but still, the junkier side of low carb, I guess.
Okay. What does that mean when you say junkier?
Well, now I characterize it as junky, but, like grain-free tortilla chips and nuts and lots of the snacky things that are low carb still.
Yeah.
So I wasn't keto, but I had noticed that cutting out, especially wheat, had really helped me feel better. And actually, the year before that, I had tried the Whole30 a few times. Yep. And now I know this is a clue. I made it a goal to eat like 5 different kinds of vegetables every day. And for the first week, I felt really good. And then after that, I felt terrible. And I had never reacted badly to elimination diets. I always feel better, usually because it's a lower level of carbohydrates. But I started to feel really bad. And I really couldn't understand it, but I just sort of put it out of my mind and, got back to normal life. But I've been low carb since about 2011, somewhere on that scale.
Yeah. So kind of paleo-ish.
Yeah, paleo, low carb. Yeah, grain-free. Vegetable. Then it was vegetable and animal products focused, but lots of nuts and healthy grain-free stuff.
Sure. Yep.
So after things got really bad, I went to my regular doctor, who was already kind of useless, and I told her, these things are happening and it's not normal, and I don't feel good, and I need your help figuring out what's going on. And she just basically shrugged and said, well, it sucks getting old.
And at that point, you're in your mid-30s.
I think I was 38 at the time.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm not old. I'm 38. No. I'm healthy. I have a great immune system, except for this weird bronchitis thing that I had. This is not because I'm old. Something's wrong. So I had been seeing a chiropractor locally, and she had recommended going to see a naturopath, which I was a little iffy on. It's very important to me that things are based in science and reality. And so things that feel woo-woo just make me very uncomfortable, and I don't like them. So I had resisted going. But then I researched a little bit on this naturopath, and she's got a master's degree in biochemistry, and her method looked very rigorous and very much consistent with what with my values. So I went to see her, and almost immediately she said, yeah, absolutely, this isn't normal. You shouldn't be feeling like this. And then she ordered 160 blood and urine tests.
Wow.
I counted 160. Wow. When I went to my GP, she begrudgingly ordered 6 tests that I didn't even do. Because I'm like, she's not listening to me. This isn't going to be even worth pursuing. I'm going to go do something else.
Yeah.
So my naturopath ordered 160 blood and urine tests, including the Great Plains,
yep.
The oats test. And then a month later, I went back to see my naturopath. Meanwhile, she had put me on an elimination diet, gluten-free, which I already was, but also dairy-free, and had sort of just to sort of like clear the system, to see whatever was going on. It sort of sets the tone.
So you had been eating dairy?
I had been eating dairy. So I cut that out for a month, which actually increased my plant intake, but which, spoiler alert, was a little problematic, but it was okay. So I went back, and we had a 2-hour session where she walked through the results of every single test, and explained what she thought each of these meant. And something was high, but she'd say, actually, I think this is high because something else is low, and we'll talk about that in a minute, and just methodically walked me through. And then she said, have you ever had a kidney stone? And I was like, nope, I've never had a kidney stone. My dad has them. But then we got to the oxalate result, and it was off the chart. And the other thing that was off the chart was my C-reactive protein, which is it's just a generic inflammation marker. Yep. So a lot of times they think of it as a marker for heart disease. But it doesn't tell you anything about what the inflammation is. It just tells you that there is inflammation.
Yep.
And just for reference, it's supposed to be 1 or below. That's kind of a normal. Mine was 10.
Oh boy.
So like if I had gone to a normal doctor, they would have put me on heart medication right away.
Yeah.
But since I was with a naturopath, she said, you know, this is a clear sign that there's inflammation. So we need to address the cause of the inflammation. And she said, I think the main cause is oxalates, which I had never heard of. And so she gave me a, you know, like basically a food list, but she also gave me the link to the Facebook group called Trying Low Oxalates.
Run by Stephen Owens.
Yeah. And I just read everything on that site, which at the time was actually not that much. But I could see that Susan Owens clearly is a researcher, and the group is very persistent about being evidence-based. So no links to people's opinion websites, peer-reviewed medical journal papers, that kind of thing. And the group really served as a support group to help me through the oxalate reduction process, which was very difficult. But on the other side, you know, 6 months later, we can, if you want, we can talk about sort of the process of detoxing the oxalate.
Oh, that would be great, because that's one of my disappointments in, you know, I've been carnivore since August of 19, and you know, the people who are talking carnivore, they're hardly, you know, they may interview like Sally Kane Norton, but they
don't get it.
They haven't seemed to got it. I think they're starting to. Sean Baker just did a great interview with Sally for the second time.
Oh, good. Okay.
And yeah, it just came out like a week ago. And maybe I should say the date of this interview is April 10th of 2020. Yeah, I felt like he really let Sally put it out there.
Okay. And
I got the sense that Sean's really, really getting, and he's real more open to it. But he's had so many positive testimonials. You know, if you go to his website, meetrx.com, I mean, there are so many positive stories. It's easy for those of us who are struggling to kind of get skipped or missed.
Yeah.
But then, of course, go ahead. Sorry.
I think the thing is that for a lot of people, if oxalates aren't a major problem for them, they may not really notice the oxalate part of going carnivore. So they may not understand that for people who have a serious accumulation of oxalates in their tissues, that going cold turkey carnivore is unhealthy and dangerous. And that's the thing that I think I listened to their first interview. I haven't listened to their second one. I feel like Sean Baker didn't really catch the subtlety of that plants can be bad, but also reducing them has to be done methodically. So, I mean, it's almost like cutting down on a medication it's analogous, but not the same as like a withdrawal. You have to be careful about how you do it.
And for some people, we've heard the stories, you know, there's been reported cases of people ending up in the hospital because their kidneys overloaded with the body dumping these oxalates.
I mean, I absolutely believe it. It's really hard. I mean, emotionally, it's very hard to keep consuming plants when you know that they're hurting you. So it's really hard to not just stop eating them. And that's, I think, what causes a lot of people with oxalate issues to go too fast and to dump too hard. So I guess I'll tell you the end of the story, and then we can talk more about dumping oxalates. So I had this persistent joint pain and tendonitis and back pain, and my joints wouldn't hold a chiropractic adjustment. And then after about 6 months of reducing oxalates and, you know, being pretty uncomfortable for about 6 months, I just started to feel like myself again. So the brain fog went away, the joint pain went away, just completely. Joint pain that I didn't even think was an oxalate problem. I just thought it was a permanent injury. It just went away. So for the first time in probably 15 years, I actually didn't have any pain. It was bizarre.
And that was after 6 months?
That was about after 6 months for me. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
it takes longer for other people, I think.
Yeah. And what was because you were still eating some plants then. What was your initial, I mean, you tapered down. How long did you give yourself to taper down?
About 6 months.
So it's gradual tapering over 6 months.
Yeah, it was pretty,
okay.
It was very gradual. In fact, I probably didn't go gradually enough. The first 6 weeks were really bad. And clearly now I know I should have gone much more gradually. So what I did was I basically took there's a spreadsheet of the measured oxalates in the triangle oxalates group.
Yeah, there's a subgroup, right? What is it called?
It's the TLO spreadsheets group.
There you go, triangle oxalate spreadsheet group. Yep.
So they've spent thousands of dollars to do testing on individual foods. So I basically just took the spreadsheet and I just started knocking off foods that I usually ate, and I just sort of crossed them off one at a time, like basically one a week. And at the time, I mean, I was eating low carb. I wasn't keto yet, but I was eating nuts, and I was eating beets, and I was eating spinach, and I was all those super high. I mean, I drank tons of tea. Yeah. Just every, healthy food, but also happened to be very high oxalate. So, I basically started going one food at a time, and had pretty intense dumping for the first 6 weeks.
Yeah. And did you dump the big boys first? Is that what you went for, like spinach first? And
I think I may have already been off spinach, but I think I did like tomatoes. It was a long time ago, so it's hard to tell. But carrots and tomatoes, and I sort of crossed one out every week. And I think I held out to the very end for tea, because that was the hardest thing to give up.
So is that your morning boost?
Actually, now it's coffee. I never used to drink coffee, but now I drink coffee.
No, but it was,
every day. And in the winter, all day, I would drink, 3 or 4 cups of coffee a day. So,
or 3 or 4 cups of tea.
3 or 4 cups of tea. Okay. I've even purged it from my mind.
Yeah. You probably almost wish you had been a coffee person instead of a tea person.
Almost, yeah. Well, now I am. I still actually, so I felt a lot better, and started to eat a few more. So I was still eating low oxalate vegetables, and then I would add in an occasional higher oxalate vegetable, like carrots or tomatoes or something like that, just because variety, feels good. And I definitely started to kind of creep up my oxalate intake, and like last fall, I started noticing I was dumping a lot more frequently and a lot more intensely. So in January, I started ramping down to carnivore, although I've had to be really careful. It's been kind of a rough ride again.
Yeah. So let's go back again to that beginning 6 weeks that you said were rough. Do you, I don't care about perfect memory, but just in general, do you remember kind of some of the symptomology that got worse during that time?
Yeah. So the brain fog and the fatigue
got worse.
Definitely got way worse.
And it was already bad, right?
It was already bad, and the thing again, if I hadn't had that support group to know that this was worth doing, there's no way I would have kept doing this. If I had just been, I'm not going to eat plants anymore, and then started feeling really terrible, I don't think I would have made it. But yeah, so brain fog, fatigue, cloudy urine, neck pain. So I get, I still, one of my major symptoms is a headache from my muscles in my neck cramping, and it pulls on my optical nerve. So sometimes I actually get, what looks like an optical migraine. So the glittery things in your eyes. And
did you have that before?
No, I'd never had anything like a migraine.
New.
It was
that was
brand
new.
new.
it wasn't just an exaggeration of stuff.
Yeah. No, the neck pain was new.
Boy.
It was not new. That was common
Yep.
for me to have a headache like that. But the optical nerve thing, that was pretty intense. Let's see. So anxiety, which was not a big thing for me before, like just, you know, general, like normal human anxiety, but like waves of adrenaline and like almost like panic level adrenaline, was very new for me. Heart palpitations, and I also would get hot flashes, that was very alarming the first time I got it. I was in a plane. I was flying on an airplane, and I was like, I cannot believe how hot this plane is right now. Like, I was sweating, and it was really uncomfortable. And I, you know, like I turned to my husband and I was like, like, can you believe how hot it is? And he was, what are you talking about? And it took me a couple hours to figure out it was dumping, because I'd heard other people had that symptom, but that was new.
And that was how long in?
Maybe a month in.
Oh, so it was early on. Okay.
Yeah, it was early.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that would happen is my joint pain would come back. So I would get these, and my joint pain was kind of unique. It was really stabbing pains. So, I mean, now I know literally it was the sharp crystals of oxalates in my tissues. So it was needles, but it felt like needles. So I would describe it as like an ice pick through the tissues.
Any itching or rashes?
Yeah, now I'm like, it's kind of cool. It's weird. I get little rashes or little bumps on my fingers, like right on the really tender part of your finger. I'll get crystals that just pop out. So there's a little itchy bump, and then the crystals pop out of my skin. So
and you can feel it because it's sharp.
Yeah, and I mean, pick it out with a tweezer, it's like a little piece of glass.
Yeah.
It's bizarre. So I didn't get big rashes like a lot of people do, but I would definitely get the itchy bumps.
Yeah.
Oh, and then also my eyes, my tear ducts, I tear up a lot, and the tears have quite a few oxalates in them. So I wear contacts, and my contacts will get coated with oxalates. I'll have to clean them sometimes like 4 or 5 times a day.
A day? Wow. Yeah. Okay. I've never heard anyone talk about that.
Yeah. So the TLO group, it apparently happens to some people. Some people even have like tear duct blockage. Like they'll get a crystal in their tear duct and it blocks it.
I've had that happen actually.
Okay.
I'll wake up and my eyes are really dry, and then I'll like squeeze them, or quadriplegic, my partner might wipe them. And then sometimes, not always, sometimes, then it's like my eyes will start getting more oil and lubrication.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird.
It's so weird.
And it's, what's strange is that so many people have different, like very different symptoms. So it's hard to really point to, 5 things that you're definitely going to experience if you're having oxalate dumping.
Yeah, I think that's one of the crimes of this situation is it's so hard for somebody to diagnose. In traditional medicine is like, well, do you have kidney stones? Right. Oh, then you don't have an oxalate problem if you don't have kidney stones.
Right. Yeah. And even if you have kidney stones, like my dad has kidney stones, and his doctor just told him not to eat spinach. So he just doesn't eat that much spinach. But that's all they told him. They didn't talk about like why. They just accept that that's just what happens. You just get kidney stones, instead of that you have some agency to prevent those from happening.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's strange.
Did you start incorporating any of the any minerals or citrates or like that to help minimize symptoms?
Yeah, actually my naturopath, she actually prescribed a lot of supplements at first, and I was still a little bit on alert for the woo-woo scam thing. But I went home and I researched every single one of them, and it was completely supported by what she was saying in the test results. So And very quickly, like within 2 months, I was off most of them. But she had me on a B complex. Oh, it's hard to remember everything, but she had me on L-carnitine for mitochondria support, I think.
Yep.
At first I had a spreadsheet with everything and how often I was supposed to take it. It was, so it's hard for me to remember everything, but CalMag citrate became like a major crutch for me. So if I started feeling the dumping symptoms come on, I would take that. I still do. I still have the same powder that I take pretty frequently. She also had me on curcumin, which is the active ingredient in turmeric. Turmeric is very high in oxalates, but curcumin is not.
Oh, I didn't have that clear in my head. Thanks for sharing that.
So it's a natural anti-inflammatory, and I do think that it really worked. I would notice a couple days after I would run out and stop taking it, I would notice my inflammation signs come back. So I still take that occasionally. She had me on a multivitamin, a Mitoplex multivitamin. She also had me on a high dose of vitamin C, but actually after reading some of the studies on the triangle oxalates group, I stopped taking that because vitamin C can actually, your body can turn that into oxalate. So that was, that one I didn't want to play with.
Yeah. Did you notice a difference when you stopped the C?
I didn't take it for long enough to notice a difference.
Yeah. I learned some stuff several years ago that made me a big fan of vitamin C. And anyway, my brain is still going through a spin on it. Yeah. Because there's so many positive, I've seen so many people like go into high dose, especially when they start feeling sick.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's just amazing. You can stop colds in their tracks.
Yeah.
If you dose regularly and often. So I'm recalculating, and I don't want to give advice that pushes people into a bad place.
Yeah.
So I think I'm kind of coming to this place where as a maintenance dose, maybe, and I know the triangle oxalate group is 250 milligrams. I've heard other people say 500. I think that's still maybe okay-ish, but it probably depends on the person. But then I think I'm kind of leaning towards recommending that if you do start getting sick, you know, you can maybe play with this idea of short term.
Yeah.
You know, you can hit it hard for a week or something as you need, but then come back down again. That's kind of where I'm at now. And I'm finding people on I'm trying to remember which subgroup it is. There's a carnivore subgroup for triangle oxalate, which is where you showed up and I saw you. But then there's another group that someone there started, and I'm trying to remember which one it is, but there's some people like, you know, I don't feel as good unless I'm taking 2 grams. I mean, like significant change in how they feel. So how do you rationalize that out, you know? And I'm even playing, you know, when I went carnivore, I was doing 8 grams a day, and I didn't know about oxalates then. So then I find out about oxalates, and a lot of people, when they transition to carnivore, it's not unusual for people to get diarrhea.
Yeah.
And I didn't have that at all. I actually my stools got more formed. But I'm also doing milk thistle and high vitamin C. And then I, you know, started listening to Sally Norton. And then I like just stopped. I got so freaked out, I just stopped the C. Yeah. And then I didn't figure it out until like a month later when I started working with Elliot Overton, who's interviewed Sally, and he gets the oxalate thing.
Okay.
And we're like, why do I have this? This diarrhea showed up now. And then together, we're like, oh my God, when diarrhea started, that's when I stopped the vitamin C.
Oh.
He's found in some of his clients that if they go carnivore for like 6 months and they still have diarrhea, he has a great video explaining in physiologic depth, why he thinks that's happening for certain people. And he puts them on like 2, 3, 4 grams of C. And some people, like in 2 or 3 days, they start having normal stools and they start feeling better.
Interesting. Okay.
So I'm in this weird place with, I guess it's going to have to be just individual.
Yeah. Well, so here's the thing that really frustrates me about oxalates, which is feeling good is actually not an indication of doing the right thing with oxalates.
Sure.
Which
I
is
get
what's
that.
so frustrating. So
Yeah.
if I'm feeling really bad from dumping and I eat higher oxalates, I will feel better because I stopped dumping.
Yes.
But that doesn't mean I'm doing the right thing. It means that I'm
Correct.
not dumping.
Yeah.
And so it's really, it's hard because, you know, so there's no science, or there's not enough science to make educated guesses on what to do.
Yep.
And the science that we're doing, the N=1 science that we're doing on ourselves, you can't draw a conclusion because you feel better. You can't draw a conclusion from feeling better in an acute state. So you have to try something for 6 months before you really know if you feel better. You know, people are often in the mindset like, well, I ate this thing and I didn't feel bad. Because they're thinking about it as like as an allergy or sensitivity. Like, I stopped eating gluten and I felt better. I started eating gluten and I felt worse. Okay, gluten is bad for me.
Yeah.
But that's not the same for oxalates because it's not a sensitivity; it's a toxicity.
Yep.
So I stopped taking poison and I feel worse. Well, taking poison doesn't necessarily make you feel better or make you better. It just makes you feel better.
Yep.
So it's impossible.
Yeah, it really is. Yep. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, it's not hopeless. It's just, it's hard because we, you know, usually our MDs are not helping us with this. So we're either doing this alone or we're doing it with the help of these groups that are sort of loosely, it's not a program, it's just a group that has information on it. So it's, you know, you're not like buying somebody's book and following their diet program. It's really difficult to navigate this by yourself.
Yeah. My brain is getting stretched all over the place with all of this and trying to make good choices and not be stupid, and it's really hard.
Yeah.
And you know, for some people, it's a factorial experiment where, you know, I just, like I think I said earlier, no, I guess it was before we started recording, I did a Genova Diagnostics NutriVal test, and I've done work with heavy metals before, and I just found out my lead is really high. And it's like lead can screw up everything.
Yeah.
So, and you know, and that could even be a possible reason why for me, taking some extra vitamin C could make sense.
Yeah.
But then you can, you know, you already just spelled it out so clearly that still might not be a good way of approaching it. So anyway, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and you know, part of it is also, you know, you may be low in vitamin C because you are there's lots of inflammation. So it's not that your problem is due to a lack of vitamin C, it's that your problem is causing a lack of vitamin C. The vitamin C is helping, but you're not necessarily addressing the underlying problem. And finding that underlying problem is really difficult. So
yeah. So okay, so let's go back to your story.
Yeah.
So you had a rough initial 6 weeks.
Yeah, 6 weeks was pretty bad.
And you were only going down really slowly. And
what I thought was slowly, I mean, now I know I should have been going down half as slowly.
Yeah, but compared to going full on
I didn't go
carnivore,
cold turkey. If I had gone full on carnivore, I would have just died. It would have been so horrible.
Yeah.
But you know, after 6 weeks, it kind of leveled out, and then it was just sort of a steady decrease in symptoms, and then I just, you know, I sort of decreased my intake to the point where it was kind of a sustainable level, and just felt good.
Yeah. And so so I know you have some stages along here. So that was your initial dropping the oxalates. You're still eating some plants.
Yeah.
Food. Yep. And then what was the next step? At some point you went keto.
Yeah. Oh, so actually, after I think 3 months, I went back for my 3-month checkup with my naturopath.
Yep.
And I was feeling good. And you know, the next step was, so I gained a bunch of weight from probably about 25 pounds since I'd started feeling really terrible. And that may have been oxalates. It may have been some other gut issues from those antibiotics that I had taken.
Yeah.
It wasn't really clear. And she said, okay, this is easy, keto. And I was like, okay, I thought you'd probably say that, no problem. And it was December 8th and I started that day, and lost 25 pounds and, you know, I feel like that sort of was the final cap on feeling better. My blood sugar, even though I was pretty low carb already, my blood sugar regulation just got incredibly solid from that. So that's definitely, that was a huge help. But I did start to sort of slip in low carb, but higher oxalate vegetables as, you know, after probably 8 months of keto, just for variety. I love food, I love cooking. So it was hard to not eat anything but, you know, bok choy and, you know, so I would have a little tomato sauce here and there and, you know, a carrot, like a baby carrot. And, and then it just gradually got a little bit more. And then, last fall I noticed that I was having more frequent dumping. You know, I was maybe at once a month, you know, after my initial bad, you know, after the first 3 months, I was probably a once a month dump. And then I was starting to notice like twice a month and then 3 times a month. And then kind of a low level all the time, like my contacts, you know, my contacts would get cloudy and I would just feel like anxious a little bit. So I was like, okay, I need to go back to a more rigorous diet. And I just decided, you know, plants are bad for me, then I should just try carnivore, because then I don't have to keep track of how much I'm eating from the plant side.
So you went keto in September of 18?
December of 18, yeah.
Okay. Yep. And so then you just went carnivore in January of 20.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't say that I have gone carnivore yet. I started kind of cold turkey, but with using like dark chocolate to sort of titrate down a little bit. And actually it was too intense. My dumping got pretty bad. And I added new symptoms, yay. But so, and then when the COVID-19 stuff started and like the stress levels went way up, the dumping stress on top of that was a little bit too much. So I'm trying to be very gradual now. So I'm eating, there's 3 things I consume that have oxalates in them now, which is dark chocolate, tea, and tomato sauce. And all of those are self-limiting for me. I can't really overdo any of those. So, and I can monitor my quantities on those well enough that I can bring those down. So it's been working pretty well.
You can control your chocolate intake?
It's actually, I don't love chocolate.
Oh, wow, you're a bird.
Yeah, so I can, I get tired, you know, like 1 square a day is about that much chocolate is about 40 grams, milligrams, 40 oxalates, which is about the minimum that the Triangle Oxalates group recommends. So I usually do that plus a cup of tea and maybe half a cup of tomato sauce. So that's been pretty manageable, but I'm trying to work myself to full carnivore. Yeah.
So give us an idea of what a typical day of eating looks like now for you.
Well, so I'll just go to like right before the COVID stuff hit, because that's a little bit more typical. So I have a coffee with cream, like a cold brew coffee with heavy cream in the morning, and then go to work. And then when I come home, sometimes I work from home in the afternoon. So I'd come home at like 4 or 5, whenever I got home. I would make a steak or bacon and eggs, or you know, ground beef with cheese on it or something like that for dinner. And that was pretty much it. So I was eating, having the coffee with cream in the morning, and then, like a pound of ground beef or something with cheese on it for dinner.
So you'd skip right through so basically you're eating one meal a day.
Yeah.
A little tiny snack at breakfast, but then one meal.
Yeah. So the cream is about 250 calories.
Sure.
So yeah, it's a snack. It's but I mean, I gotta say, like, low carb for me, the blood sugar regulation alone is worth it. So I used to be really, like, my blood sugar would be all over the place. I would get hungry really fast, and then, like, I would get to the point where I shouldn't drive, like my brain wasn't working. I wasn't diabetic, but I mean, it's just a smaller version of the same thing, I think.
Yeah, probably head towards it. Yeah.
So yeah, so I would get to the point where I kept snacks with me just in case, I got hungry and it was an emergency. And now, if it's not convenient to eat, I can just not eat. And that's practically a miracle. And that was, really starting low carb, that started to happen, but especially after keto, I could just skip a meal, which, 15 years ago, me wouldn't even believe that was possible.
Yeah. 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 I was that way too.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a trip. It's really good to see my body can do it.
Yeah.
Because I've had so many digestive troubles for so long, and being underweight, I was just afraid if I didn't eat, I was going to lose weight.
Yeah.
So now it's like, wow, okay. That's out of fear. So when you eat, say a steak or whatever animal protein, do you pay attention to fat protein ratio?
I don't.
Go by taste?
I go by taste. And so when I was the first 6 months I did keto, I logged everything. So I have an app that I would log. And so I was getting my macros pretty precisely. And I learned really what worked for me. So if I use 85% ground beef, or if I eat a ribeye, I kind of know intuitively what I need to add to it. Like, a ribeye doesn't need any extra fat. The 85% ground beef, I add a little cheese. But my body, it took a while, but I can feel when I need something more. If I need more protein or I need more fat. It's a little bit more intuitive now. But it took a while. I was pretty scientific about it for a while, because it was all uncharted territory for me. Yeah.
I find sometimes even in the course of a meal, for a while I was getting these really fatty burgers, and they're so fatty, they're 65%, that a lot of the fat would just melt out.
Yeah.
And then I'd eat the burger first, and then the fat would start congealing, and then I would start eating it. And I found sometimes it's like, I usually would have like 3 1/4 pound burgers, and I'd get through 1 or 2, and then it'd be like, God, I don't want to eat more burger. And so I start eating the fat, and it's like, wow, this tastes really good. And then I'd get to a point where I wasn't finished all my fat, and it's like, oh, I want some more burger now. Really fun to watch that.
That is interesting. Well, especially, like, I didn't have a lot of, like, appetite regulation, or, like, my appetite regulation was really screwed up when I was a kid, because now I know, because I ate so many carbs. I just ate the standard American diet. But, cereal for breakfast, cereal with milk, which is sugar and sugar. For breakfast, and then a sandwich for lunch, which is sugar with a little bit of protein on it. And then spaghetti for dinner, which is sugar with sugar on top, and maybe a little bit of meat. And so, like, my appetite wasn't reliable. I couldn't I couldn't depend on, like, a signal that I wasn't hungry anymore. And now, like, I'll cook a pound of ground beef for a dinner. And then I usually finish about 3/4 of it. And then I just don't want to eat anymore. And that's not something that happened to me when I was younger. I didn't ever not want to eat more. I just decided that I needed to not eat more. But now it's just like, nah, I don't want any more. Like, I don't want to take another bite.
Yeah.
So
Does that feel empowering to you?
it does. Yeah. And I mean, so not having to eat and not, and being able to rely on my natural appetite, it's a revolution for me. It's really amazing.
Yeah, that's awesome. Do you play with in the organ world at all or not?
So I really like liver pate.
Yep.
So I do eat that. I don't have any issues with offal, but since so mid-February, which is like 6 weeks after I started carnivore, like it became very clear that COVID was coming and that we were in for a long haul. So I started prepping for it kind of mid-February. And so organ meats are harder to stock up on and store. So I've still got some liver pate that I had from my original like stock up buy. I'm kind of running low, but once things get going again, I plan on going back to that.
Yeah.
So right now my dogs are eating more organ meat than I am because I've always put heart and gizzards and kidneys in their food. So,
yeah. You've done that for a long time or just recently?
I think I've been making their food for about a year.
Okay.
One of my dogs was just, no matter what food we fed him, like grain-free, $70 a bag,
Yeah.
Super fancy dog food, he would just be fat all the time.
Yeah.
And, looking at the ratios, I'm like, well, I wouldn't eat this. This is way too high carb for me. So why am I feeding this to my dog? So I started making their food, and he went to a normal weight, within 2 months.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So, and obviously it's the best thing they've ever eaten. It's
yeah.
raw meat and vegetables and a little bit of rice. And they love it. So. Yeah.
Yeah. That's great to hear. Yeah. So let's see. Anything else? It feels like we're getting close to wrapping it up here.
Yeah.
Give me kind of right now where you're at with, those symptoms you used to have. Give me an idea of where you're at now and what you're kind of, if there's any other symptoms you're hoping to shift more in the future.
So right now, just because of the, trying to get my footing again with carnivore, I'm at about maybe every 2 weeks, maybe every 3 weeks, I'm having a dumping. Maybe more than that. But they're pretty mild. So I'll notice I get a little irritable and I get really sensitive to high-pitched sounds. Maybe a couple times a week. But I recognize that as a dumping symptom now.
Yeah.
But the symptoms are very mild now and very manageable. And all of the joint pain, all of that stuff, that's gone. The only time I get it back is when I'm getting a large oxalate dump.
Yeah. And how long might those last now?
Less than a day. So usually half a day.
Oh, it's really short. Okay.
Mm-hmm. It's really short. So it just sort of hits. And the thing is, I can feel when it's coming. I can feel about a couple of hours before it's going to really hit hard. So I'll take my magnesium. Sometimes I'll take an Epsom salts bath. And I can usually make this just kind of blunt the symptoms a little bit.
Yeah.
So it's not too bad.
Cool.
So I feel like I'm probably at 90%. So I feel like when I was at my best after the first round of oxalate recovery, I was 98%. I had felt better. I felt better than I had in 15 years. And now I may be at 90%, 95%, but I still feel really good.
Yeah. Do you feel like when you made the switch to carnivore back in January, that stirred another level?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I hear that story a lot.
Yeah, and that makes total sense. Like I was at a rate of intake of oxalates, and then I dropped that rate significantly. So of course my body would dump those toxins. So I was expecting it. It was just maybe a little bit more than I had anticipated. But that's okay, because now I know how to manage it. And that's the main thing is like, the hard thing is when you start, you don't really know what to expect or how to manage it. And now I know how to manage it. So it's too bad I used to eat a little chocolate and it kind of dies down. Or if I can live through it, I just write it out.
Yep. Yep. When's the last time you had a headache? Or do you still get them when you dump?
Yeah, I mean, probably four days ago.
Okay.
Yeah, it's hard to separate it from all the stress of the strange new world we live in. Although the headaches feel a little bit different, but yeah, probably 4 or 5 days ago.
Are they less intense than they used to be?
Mm-hmm. Well, and I just start to feel like stiffness in my neck before the headache really starts to hit. So if I just go take magnesium, then it really helps because it's muscle cramping. I think it's just from the low magnesium. Because when your body is dumping, you're using up all the magnesium in your body. So you start to get those muscle cramps. So, so if I take magnesium right away, it usually helps quite a bit.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else that you would like the listeners to know?
I guess the main thing is what I want to tell past me is that feeling bad isn't normal. Like if you don't feel good, there's actually something wrong. Even if somebody tells you there's nothing wrong with you, it's not normal. So it's worth pursuing.
Finding if either on your own or with a practitioner who gets it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well said. Okay. God, I feel like there's something I'm forgetting, but we've taken up a lot of your time, so thank you.
Thank you, my pleasure. This is
so
fun.
much. It was really nice to talk with you and catch up some, and I'm just really excited to to put this out on my YouTube channel as I start building more videos. And I appreciate your willingness to go kind of more in depth on your process instead of just kind of like, I had some symptoms for a while, now I'm over it. Yeah. So I think more people need to see this kind of information because it's really helpful to know you can, with the right support, you can ride it out.
Yeah, I think that, the most valuable thing for me going through this was having that support group of people on the Triangle Oxalates group, just saying, somebody would post, hey, this is happening to me. What's is this normal? And everybody would say, yeah, it's normal. You're fine. Like, you're going to be fine. But like knowing that it's normal, that's really important to people. So, and it was really important to me. So, yeah.
Yeah, one thing I just thought of randomly, because I am in touch a lot with Sally Norton, so I've been sending her my crazy pictures, and I haven't said this yet on here, so people who don't know me, I have quadriplegia from a mountain biking accident, so I have a catheter and a urine drainage bag. So we've been seeing weird dark brown colors come out, and I've had crystals coming out of my skin and my eyes, and then out of the blue, my left foot just swelled up. And I'm not walking around and twisting my ankles because I'm in a power wheelchair.
Right.
So it's just like, what's going on? And then that went away, and then my left hand swelled up out of the blue. My right one was fine. And anyway, in Sally's interview with Sean Baker, that was just a couple weeks ago, she showed some of my pictures.
Oh, wow. That's really cool. I'm so glad she's doing this work. She's got so much information on the internet now that was not available when I started. I feel like there's a lot more information and support than there was even a few years ago.
Yeah. Well, okay. I just wanted to mention that because if you watch that interview, you're like, oh, there's Michael.
Oh. That's really cool.
Anyway, well, hey, it's been a total pleasure. Thanks so much for your time and sharing. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's good to see you again.
Yeah, and I'm gonna stop the recording, but then I'd like to talk with you just for a minute.
Okay, sounds good.